The stars looked different when you knew death was coming from them. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the empty space between Mars and Jupiter. Her coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but she didn't care. The long-range sensors showed what everyone feared, but nobody wanted to say out loud. They were coming. "Ma'am, we're getting clearer readings now." Lieutenant Torres approached with a data pad, his young face pale. "The computer estimates over 10,000 ships. Maybe more." Sarah took the pad and studied the numbers. Each dot on the screen represented a vessel larger than anything humanity had ever built. The biggest ones were the size of small cities. She had seen the reports from other worlds, other species that had faced the Zeltharian Imperial Navy. None of those worlds existed anymore. "Have you contacted Earth Command?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Admiral Rodriguez wants to speak with you immediately." Sarah nodded and walked to the communication center. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the weathered face of Admiral Rodriguez. Behind him, she could see the busy command center at Earth Defense Headquarters. "Sarah, I need your best estimate on their arrival time," Rodriguez said without greeting. 72 hours, sir. Maybe less if they increase speed." She paused. "Admiral, the size of this fleet. It's bigger than what hit the Andromedan homeworld." Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. In the background, Sarah could hear officers talking in urgent whispers. Finally, the Admiral spoke. "Sarah, I'm going to tell you something that's classified above your clearance level. But given the situation, you need to know." He leaned forward. "We're not as helpless as everyone thinks." Before Sarah could ask what he meant, another officer appeared on screen. She recognized Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the quantum physicist who had been working on some secret project for the past 5 years. "Captain Chen," Dr. Warren said, "have you ever wondered why we built all those particle accelerators? The ones that seemed too big for simple research?" Sarah frowned. "I assumed it was for scientific advancement." Dr. Warren smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "In a way, yes, but not the kind of science the public knows about." Admiral Rodriguez took control of the conversation again. "Captain, I need you to return to Earth immediately. Bring your senior staff. We're activating Protocol 7. "Sir, I've never heard of Protocol 7. "That's because it didn't exist in any official records until today. It's our insurance policy, our last resort." Rodriguez's expression grew serious. "And possibly our first resort, depending on how this goes." Sarah felt confused. "Admiral, with respect, what aren't you telling me?" "That humanity has been playing a very long game, Captain, and these alien invaders are about to find out that we're much better at it than anyone imagined." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah staring at the empty hologram. Around her, the Luna Station crew continued their work, monitoring the approaching fleet that everyone believed would destroy Earth within days. 3 hours later, Sarah was aboard a fast transport heading toward Earth. Through the viewport, she could see the blue planet that had given birth to humanity. It looked peaceful, unaware of the massive alien armada approaching from the outer system. But as they got closer, Sarah began to notice things that seemed strange. Cargo ships were moving in patterns that didn't match normal commercial traffic. Military vessels were positioned in ways that made no tactical sense for defending against a space-based attack. And there were energy readings coming from the surface that her instruments couldn't identify. "Captain," her pilot said, "I'm getting instructions to land at a facility I've never heard of. Coordinates put it somewhere under the Swiss mountains." Sarah checked her own navigation system. The coordinates led to what should have been empty mountainside, but her sensors detected a massive underground complex. As they approached, a section of the mountain simply vanished, revealing a landing bay large enough for ships 10 times their size. "What is this place?" the pilot whispered. Sarah didn't answer because she didn't know. But as they landed, she saw Admiral Rodriguez waiting for them, along with Dr. Warren and dozens of other people she didn't recognize. Behind them, through transparent barriers, she could see machinery that defied her understanding of physics. "Welcome to Project Deep Thought," Admiral Rodriguez said, as Sarah stepped off the transport. "Though that's not its real name. We just called it that because we like old books." Dr. Warren gestured toward the massive machinery. "Captain, what do you know about quantum mechanics?" "Basic stuff. College physics. Why?" "Because we've moved somewhat beyond college physics." Dr. Warren led them deeper into the facility. "Tell me, what would happen if you could manipulate the quantum states of matter on a large scale?" Sarah thought about it. "Theoretically, You could change the fundamental properties of anything: molecular bonds, atomic structure, even the laws of physics in a localized area. Exactly. Dr. Warren stopped in front of a control center that looked like something from a science fiction movie. And what if you could project those manipulations across space? Say to a fleet of alien ships? The pieces began falling into place in Sarah's mind. You built a weapon. We built a defense system, Admiral Rodriguez corrected. A very, very effective one. Dr. Warren activated a holographic display showing the approaching Zeltharian fleet. They're using fusion drives, plasma weapons, and antimatter torpedoes. Very advanced by most standards. Primitive by ours. How long have you been working on this? Sarah asked. 20 years. Ever since we first detected radio signals from other civilizations. Admiral Rodriguez looked at the display. We realized that if intelligent life existed, some of it might not be friendly. So we prepared. A technician approached Dr. Warren with a report. Ma'am, the quantum field generators are at 90% charge. We can reach full power in 6 hours. Dr. Warren nodded. Good, and the targeting systems? Locked onto the alien fleet. We have clean atomic signatures for all their ship types. Sarah felt like she was in a dream. You're telling me that while the world thinks we're helpless, we actually have technology that can destroy an entire fleet? Not destroy, Captain. That would be messy and violent. Dr. Warren's smile was almost frightening. We prefer a more elegant solution. Before Sarah could ask what that meant, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. A voice over the intercom announced, "Incoming transmission from the alien fleet. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." Admiral Rodriguez led them to the communication center. On the main screen, an alien face appeared. It was reptilian, with cold yellow eyes and scales that seemed to shift color in the light. When it spoke, translation software converted its words to English. "Primitive inhabitants of the third planet," the alien said. "I am Admiral Vexthon of the Zeltharian Imperial Navy. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species. This is the only warning you will receive." The transmission ended. The room was silent for a moment. Then Admiral Rodriguez walked to the communication controls and opened a channel. "Admiral Vexthon, this is Admiral Rodriguez of Earth Defense Command. We have a counteroffer. You have 1 hour to leave our system. This is the only warning you will receive." He closed the channel and turned to Sarah. "Captain, would you like to see how this ends?" Sarah looked around the room at all the confident faces, at the incredible technology, at the displays showing an alien fleet that thought Earth was helpless. "Yes, sir," she said. "I think I would." Admiral Vexthon's laughter echoed through the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. Around him, his officers joined in the amusement. The idea that these primitive humans would dare threaten the Imperial Navy was beyond ridiculous. "Did you hear that?" Vexthon said to his tactical officer. 1 hour to leave their system. These creatures must be even more stupid than our intelligence reports suggested. Commander Ethek, his second-in-command, studied the tactical display. "Admiral, our scouts report that the humans have only basic orbital defenses. A few satellites, some primitive missiles. Nothing that could threaten even our smallest ships." Vexthon nodded. The intelligence reports had been very clear. Earth's technology was decades behind the Empire's. They still used chemical rockets and nuclear fission. Their most advanced weapons were barely capable of reaching orbit, let alone threatening a fleet positioned at the edge of their system. "What about their ground defenses?" Vexthon asked. "Minimal, sir. Some missile silos, aircraft that can't reach space, and ground-based energy weapons that couldn't penetrate our shields even if they could hit us." Commander Ithek brought up another display. "Their largest cities are completely undefended from orbital bombardment." This was exactly what Vexthon expected. The pattern was always the same. Young civilizations developed spaceflight, detected the Empire's expansion, and panicked. They made desperate threats they couldn't back up, then surrendered when they realized the hopelessness of their situation. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "we're intercepting increased radio traffic from the planet. They appear to be evacuating their major cities." "Standard procedure," Vexthon said dismissively. "They always do that. Makes them feel like they're accomplishing something." He turned to his fleet coordinator. "Status report on our forces. All ships ready for orbital bombardment, Admiral. Plasma cannons charged. Antimatter torpedoes loaded. Fighter squadrons are prepared for atmospheric operations." Vexthon looked at the tactical display showing Earth. It was a beautiful planet, blue and green, with white clouds swirling across its surface. It would make an excellent addition to the Empire once the human population was reduced to manageable levels. Admiral, Commander Ethek said, perhaps we should consider the possibility that they have hidden defenses. The humans have been broadcasting radio signals for over a century. They might have developed technologies we haven't detected. Vexthon dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. Impossible. Our surveillance drones have been monitoring this system for months. We know exactly what they're capable of. Besides, look at their response time. It took them 3 hours just to send us a reply. If they had advanced technology, they would have responded immediately. What the Admiral didn't know was that Earth's response had been immediate. The 3-hour delay had been carefully calculated to make the aliens believe exactly what they were thinking. Besides, Vexthon continued, we've conquered 17 star systems using these same tactics. The Andromedans had shields and energy weapons. The Kethvari had faster-than-light missiles. The Tauran had psychic powers. None of it mattered against Imperial firepower. The bridge crew nodded agreement. They had all been present for at least some of those conquests. The Imperial Navy's record was perfect. No species had ever successfully resisted them. Sir, the sensor officer called out, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the third planet. Vexthon looked at the display. There were indeed some strange readings, but they were faint and inconsistent. Analysis? Unknown, sir. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database. Could be industrial processes or primitive experiments with fusion power. Irrelevant, Vexthon decided. Even if they have fusion power, it won't help them against antimatter weapons. He was right, of course. Fusion power wouldn't help against antimatter weapons. But the humans weren't using fusion power for what the Admiral thought they were using it for. Admiral, Commander Ethek said, the human hour deadline is approaching. Should we take their refusal to surrender as a sign of hostility? Vexthon smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Of course. It always ends this way. They make brave speeches, refuse to surrender, and then we demonstrate the price of defying the Empire. Battle stations? Commander Ethek asked. Battle stations, Vexthon confirmed. Throughout the massive fleet, alarms sounded. 10,000 ships began moving into attack formation. Weapon systems that had destroyed planets charged to full power. Shields that had deflected the most advanced alien weapons came online. Sir, the communications officer reported, final message from Earth. They're repeating their demand that we leave their system. Reply with plasma fire, Vexthon ordered. But before his fleet could attack, something strange happened. The energy readings from Earth suddenly spiked. Not just a little, they increased by orders of magnitude. The numbers were so large that the sensor officer checked his equipment twice. Admiral, the sensor officer said hesitantly, the energy output from the planet just exceeded our entire fleet's reactor capacity. Vexthon frowned. That's impossible. Check your instruments. I have, sir. Multiple times. The readings are accurate. Could they be trying to blind our sensors with some kind of electromagnetic pulse? No, sir. These readings are different. I've never seen anything like this. Commander Ethek moved to the sensor station and studied the displays. Admiral, these energy signatures are completely unknown. Whatever they're doing down there, it's not in any of our databases. For the first time since entering the system, Vexthon felt a small touch of uncertainty, but he pushed it aside. The Empire had faced unknown technologies before. Raw energy was worthless without the means to project it effectively across space. Maintain attack posture, he ordered. Whatever they're doing, it won't matter once we start orbital bombardment. Sir, the tactical officer called out. All ships report ready to fire. Targeting major population centers as ordered. Vexthon looked at the beautiful blue planet one last time. In a few minutes it would be a burning ruin. The humans would learn what happened to species that defied the Empire. Begin bombardment, he ordered. The Eternal Conquest shuddered as its main plasma cannons fired. Across the fleet, thousands of other ships unleashed their weapons. Beams of superheated plasma and antimatter torpedoes streaked toward Earth at significant fractions of light speed. Vexthon watched the attack unfold on his tactical display. The volley should reach Earth in just under 4 minutes. The planet's crude defenses would be overwhelmed instantly. The bombardment would continue until the human military was destroyed and their major cities were ruins. But as the weapons approached Earth, something impossible happened. They stopped, not slowed down. Not deflected. They simply stopped moving, hanging motionless in space as if frozen in time. What just happened? Vexthan demanded. The tactical officer stared at his displays in confusion. Sir, our weapons have stopped, all of them. They're just sitting there in space. That's impossible. Check your sensors. I have, sir. The weapons are intact and powered, but they're not moving. It's like they're trapped in some kind of field. Vexathon looked at the display showing Earth. The energy readings from the planet were now beyond anything his instruments could properly measure. Whatever the humans were doing, it was affecting space itself around their world. Sir, Commander Ithek said quietly, I don't think these humans are as primitive as we thought. Vexthon stared at the tactical display where thousands of the Empire's most powerful weapons hung motionless in space. For the first time in his military career, he didn't know what to do next. Get me a communication channel to Earth, he ordered. But before the channel could open, something even more impossible happened. The frozen weapons began to move again toward his fleet. In the underground facility beneath the Swiss mountains, Dr. Elizabeth Warren watched her instruments with the focused intensity of a master pianist performing a concert. Her fingers danced across control panels that manipulated forces most physicists only dreamed about. Temporal displacement field is stable, she announced to the command center. All incoming projectiles are locked in quantum suspension. Captain Sarah Chen stood beside Admiral Rodriguez, watching displays that showed the alien weapons frozen in space around Earth. How is this possible? Quantum mechanics, Dr. Warren replied without looking away from her controls. We're manipulating the probability states of matter and energy. Those weapons exist in a state where they're both moving and not moving until we decide which reality becomes true. Admiral Rodriguez pointed to another display. The alien fleet is trying to communicate with us. Ignore them for now, Dr. Warren said. I need to concentrate on the next phase. Sarah watched the physicist work. Dr. Warren had explained the basics during the approach of the alien fleet, but seeing it in action was different. The machinery around them hummed with power that seemed to bend the air itself. Occasionally, Sarah caught glimpses of things that shouldn't exist. Shadows that moved independently of their sources. Reflections that showed rooms different from the one they were in. Phase 2 initiating, Dr. Warren announced. Redirecting kinetic vectors. On the main display, the frozen alien weapons began to change direction. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed, the plasma beams and antimatter torpedoes turned back toward the fleet that had fired them. We're sending their attack back to them? Sarah asked. With improvements, Dr. Warren said. The quantum field generators don't just manipulate position and momentum. They can also modify energy states. Those weapons are now carrying approximately twice their original power. In space, Admiral Vexthan watched his own weapons approaching his fleet with growing horror. He had ordered emergency evasive maneuvers, but the redirected attacks seemed to track his ships no matter how they moved. Raise all shields to maximum power, he commanded. His tactical officer's voice was strained. Sir, shields are already at maximum. But these weapons they're different now. They're showing energy readings far beyond what we fired at the planet. The first redirected plasma beam struck the destroyer claw of victory. The ship's shields, which had never failed in a dozen campaigns, collapsed instantly. The plasma tore through the hull like it was made of paper, and the destroyer exploded in a ball of superheated gas. Impossible, Vexthon whispered. Those are our own weapons. They can't be more powerful than when we fired them. But they were, and they kept coming. Dr. Warren checked her readings and nodded with satisfaction. Redirect complete. The alien fleet is now experiencing the full force of their own attack, enhanced and focused. Is that all we're doing? Admiral Rodriguez asked. Sending their weapons back at them? Dr. Warren smiled. Oh no, Admiral. That was just to get their attention. The real demonstration is about to begin. She turned to a different set of controls, ones that Sarah hadn't seen her use before. Quantum field projectors are now at full power. Initiating probability cascade. What does that mean? Sarah asked. It means we're about to show these aliens what happens when you pick a fight with a species that has mastered quantum mechanics. Dr. Warren's fingers moved across the controls with practiced precision. We're going to change the fundamental nature of reality in their immediate vicinity. On the displays, Sarah could see strange distortions appearing around the alien fleet. Space itself seemed to ripple like water, and the stars behind the ships appeared to bend and twist. "Ma'am," one of the technicians called out, "we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies around the target area." "Expected," Dr. Warren replied. "We're manipulating space-time itself. The gravitational effects are a side effect of the quantum field manipulation." Admiral Vexthon felt his flagship shudder as something invisible seemed to grab it. Around him, his officers reported increasingly impossible readings from their instruments. "Sir," his science officer called out, "our sensors are detecting localized distortions in space-time. The fabric of space around us is changing." "What kind of changing?" "I don't know, sir. I've never seen anything like this. It's as if the laws of physics are becoming flexible." Vexthon looked at his tactical display and saw something that made his blood freeze in his veins. Ships throughout his fleet were beginning to simply disappear. Not destroyed by weapons, not exploding. They were fading out of existence like ghosts. "What's happening to my ships?" he demanded. "Sir," the science officer said, his voice shaking, I think the humans are changing the quantum states of our vessels. They're making it so we don't exist in this reality anymore." That was impossible. No species in the galaxy had technology like that. The Empire's greatest scientists had barely begun to understand quantum mechanics, let alone weaponize it. "Get me a communication channel to Earth immediately," Vexthon ordered. The channel opened, and Admiral Rodriguez's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, Vexthon could see the impossible technology that was destroying his fleet. "Admiral Vexthon," Rodriguez said calmly, "I believe you wanted to discuss our surrender." "Stop this," Vexthon shouted. "What you're doing is impossible." "Impossible?" Rodriguez looked genuinely puzzled. "Admiral, we're just applying basic quantum mechanics. I'm surprised your scientists haven't figured this out yet. Our ships are disappearing. Technically, they're transitioning to a quantum state where their existence becomes probabilistically insignificant," Dr. Warren said, stepping into view of the camera. "It's really quite elegant." Vexthon stared at the human female who spoke of destroying his fleet like she was discussing the weather. "You're monsters." "We're scientists," Dr. Warren corrected. "And you attacked our home. This is simply cause and effect." "Sir," Commander Wethek said urgently, "we're losing ships faster than we can count them. The entire third battle group just vanished." Vexthon looked at his tactical display. Where moments before there had been thousands of ships, now there were only hundreds, and the number was dropping rapidly. "How?" he asked the humans on the screen. "How did you develop this technology?" Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward. "Admiral, let me ask you a question. How long do you think humanity has known about your empire? Our intelligence says you only detected our radio signals a few decades ago." "Your intelligence is wrong. We've been listening to galactic communications for over a century. We knew about the Empire, about the conquered worlds, about what you do to species that resist you." Rodriguez's expression hardened. "We've been preparing for this day for a very long time." Dr. Warren added, "Did you really think a species that could split the atom wouldn't eventually figure out how to manipulate quantum fields?" "We've had nuclear weapons for almost a century, Admiral. This is just the next logical step." "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "we've lost 60% of the fleet. Whatever they're doing to our ships, it's accelerating." Vexthon felt something he had never experienced in his military career: complete helplessness. His weapons were useless, his shields were meaningless, and his ships were being erased from existence by forces he couldn't understand or fight. "What do you want?" he asked the humans. "We want you to leave our system and never come back," Admiral Rodriguez said. "And we want you to deliver a message to your empire." "What message?" "That Earth is under the protection of quantum mechanics. Any future attacks on our world or our allies will be met with an appropriate response." "Sir," Commander Wethek whispered, "we have to retreat. We have to warn the Empire." Vexthon nodded slowly. Whatever these humans had become, they were far beyond anything the Empire could handle with conventional weapons. "We withdraw," he said. "I'm afraid that's not possible," Dr. Warren said pleasantly. "What do you mean?" "The quantum cascade has already begun, Admiral. Your fleet exists in a state of probability collapse. Retreat is no longer an option." Vexthon stared at her in horror. "You're going to kill us all." "We're going to finish what you started," Admiral Rodriguez said. "You came here to destroy humanity. Instead, you're about to become a very important lesson for the rest of the galaxy." The quantum cascade spread through the Zeltharian fleet like a wave of impossible physics. Ship after ship simply ceased to exist, not in explosions of fire and metal, but in a more fundamental way that violated everything Admiral Vexthon thought he knew about reality. "Sir," Commander Ithek said, his voice barely a whisper, "the Crimson Blade just stopped being there." Vexthon watched his tactical display as another dreadnought disappeared from existence. One moment it was there, a massive ship with 6,000 crew members, and the next moment there was nothing but empty space. "Not even debris. How long do we have?" he asked his science officer. "Unknown, sir. The effect seems to be spreading at light speed, but it's not following normal physical laws. Some ships closer to Earth are still there, while others further away have already disappeared." Dr. Warren's voice came through the communication channel. "The quantum fields don't propagate in straight lines, Admiral. They follow probability paths. Ships with higher quantum instability disappear first." "What does that mean?" Vexthon demanded. "It means your newer ships with more complex technology are more vulnerable to quantum manipulation. The older, simpler vessels will last longer." As if to prove her point, the newest carrier in the fleet, the Pride of Zelthar, suddenly became transparent. Vexthon could see through its hull to the stars beyond. For a moment it flickered between existing and not existing, like a light being turned on and off. Then it was gone completely. "This is impossible," Vexthon said. "You can't just make matter disappear." "We're not making it disappear," Dr. Warren explained patiently. "We're changing its quantum state so that its probability of existing in this reality becomes essentially zero. The matter still exists, just not in any way that affects our universe." Captain Sarah Chen watched the displays in the underground facility with fascination and horror. She had seen many battles in her career, but nothing like this. There was no violence, no explosions, no debris. Ships simply stopped existing as if they had never been built. "How many people are on those ships?" she asked quietly. "Approximately 2 million sentient beings," Admiral Rodriguez replied, "all of whom came here to commit genocide against humanity. But they're just disappearing." "It's more humane than what they planned for us," Dr. Warren said without looking up from her controls. "Nuclear bombardment of our cities would have killed 8 billion people." The logic was sound, but Sarah still felt uncomfortable watching entire ships full of living beings simply cease to exist. Even if they were enemies, even if they had come to destroy Earth, there was something deeply unsettling about erasing them from reality itself. "Ma'am," one of the technicians called out, "we're getting some unusual readings from the center of their fleet." Dr. Warren checked her instruments. "Interesting. One of their ships is showing quantum resistance. It's fighting the probability cascade." On the main display, they could see Admiral Vexthon's flagship, the Eternal Conquest. Unlike the other ships, it wasn't disappearing. Instead, it seemed to be wrapped in some kind of energy field that sparkled with strange colors. "They have quantum shields," Dr. Warren said with what sounded like approval. "Primitive ones, but functional. Clever." Admiral Rodriguez frowned. "Will that protect them?" "For a while. But quantum mechanics isn't something you can shield against indefinitely. It's like trying to hold back the ocean with your hands." Aboard the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Vexthon felt a moment of hope as his ship's experimental quantum barriers held against the human attack. The shields had been designed by the Empire's best scientists, based on theoretical research that most military officers didn't understand. "Sir," his science officer reported, "the quantum barriers are stable. We're protected from whatever the humans are doing. How long will they hold?" "Unknown, sir. This is the first time they've been tested against actual quantum manipulation. The theory suggests they should provide indefinite protection, but the humans' technology is far beyond our theoretical models. They're doing things that shouldn't be possible." Through the viewport, Vexthon could see empty space where his fleet had been. 10,000 ships, the greatest armada in Imperial history, reduced to nothing in a matter of minutes. Only his flagship remained, protected by shields that might fail at any moment. "Sir," the communications officer said, "the humans are transmitting again." Dr. Warren's face appeared on the screen. "Admiral, we're impressed by your quantum barriers." "Very sophisticated for a primitive civilization." "Primitive," Vexthon snarled. "We conquered 17 star systems, using conventional weapons and tactics that were obsolete before your species discovered fire," Dr. Warren replied. "But your quantum research shows promise. You might survive to see the next century if you're smart about how you use it. Are you threatening us? I'm stating a fact. Your barriers can't hold indefinitely against a sustained quantum cascade. You have perhaps 10 minutes before the probability fields penetrate your defenses. Vexthon looked at his science officer, who nodded grimly. She's correct, sir. The barriers are already showing stress fractures in the quantum matrix. What do you want? Vexthon asked. We want you to carry a message back to your empire, Admiral Rodriguez said, appearing beside Dr. Warren. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is protected by forces they can't understand or fight. And if we refuse, then you'll disappear like the rest of your fleet, and the Empire will send another armada to investigate what happened to you. That armada will also disappear. Eventually they'll figure out that Earth is not a target they can afford to attack. Dr. Warren checked her instruments. Admiral Vexthon, your quantum barriers are failing. You have about 5 minutes before our fields reach your ship. Wait, Vexthon said desperately. What guarantee do we have that you'll let us leave if we deliver your message? None, Admiral Rodriguez said bluntly. But you don't have any other options. Your weapons can't hurt us, your shields can't protect you indefinitely, and your engines aren't fast enough to escape our quantum fields. Sir, Commander Ithek said quietly. He's right. We have no tactical options remaining. Vexthon stared at the humans on his screen. They looked so ordinary, so unremarkable. But they had just destroyed the most powerful fleet in the galaxy using science he barely understood. If we agree to carry your message, will you stop the quantum cascade? Of course, Dr. Warren said. We're not unreasonable. We just want to make sure the galaxy understands the new situation. What new situation? Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward. That humanity is no longer a target, Admiral. We're a predator. The word sent a chill through Vexthon. In all his years of conquest, he had never heard a species describe itself that way. The Empire's enemies called themselves defenders, freedom fighters, or guardians. They never admitted to being predators. Dr. Warren, Admiral Rodriguez said, begin shutdown procedures for the quantum cascade. Are you sure, sir? We could finish this now and send a very clear message to the Empire. The message will be clearer if someone survives to deliver it. Dr. Warren nodded and began working at her controls. Around the Eternal Conquest, the distortions in space began to fade. The probability fields that had erased 10,000 ships slowly dissipated. Admiral Vexthon, Rodriguez said, you now have safe passage out of our system. Use it wisely. The communication ended, leaving Vexthon alone with his surviving crew on a ship that had witnessed the impossible. Sir, the navigation officer said, course for home? Vexthon nodded slowly. Maximum speed. The Empire needs to know what we've learned here. As the Eternal Conquest turned away from Earth and began its journey back to Imperial space, Vexthon looked one last time at the blue planet that had just redefined the balance of power in the galaxy. He had come here to conquer a primitive world. Instead, he was returning home to warn an empire that they had found something far more dangerous than any enemy they had ever faced. They had found humanity. 3 weeks after the battle that lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds, Earth had become the most talked-about planet in the galaxy. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the newly constructed Galactic Contact Center in Geneva, reading reports from monitoring stations across human space. Every day brought new communications from alien civilizations, and most of them carried the same basic message. Please don't hurt us. Another surrender offer, she said to Admiral Rodriguez, who was reviewing similar reports at a nearby desk. The Tauran Confederation is offering to become a human protectorate in exchange for defense against the Empire. How many does that make this week? Rodriguez asked. 17 civilizations offering alliance, 23 offering surrender, and 41 just asking for our promise that we won't attack them. Sarah put down the report and rubbed her eyes. Admiral, half the galaxy is terrified of us. Good, Dr. Warren said from across the room where she was calibrating new quantum sensors. Fear will prevent wars better than diplomacy ever could. Sarah wasn't entirely comfortable with that logic, but she had to admit it was effective. In 3 weeks, human space had gone from being an unknown backwater to the center of galactic politics. The Zeltharian Empire, which had controlled a quarter of the galaxy, was in full retreat from its border worlds. Ma'am, Lieutenant Torres approached with a communication pad. We're receiving a priority transmission from the Andromedan Republic. Sarah took the pad and read the message. After a moment, she smiled. Admiral, the Andromedans want to establish a formal alliance. They're offering to share their database of Imperial military technology in exchange for protection. The Empire enslaved their homeworld for 3 centuries, Rodriguez noted. I imagine they have some strong feelings about Imperial expansion. Before Sarah could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. She looked at the main display and saw incoming ships detected at the edge of the solar system. Unknown vessels? She asked the sensor operator. No, ma'am. We have identification. It's Admiral Vexthon's ship, the Eternal Conquest. Dr. Warren looked up from her work with interest. He's back? That's faster than I expected. Should we power up the quantum defense grid? The sensor operator asked. No, Admiral Rodriguez said. Let's hear what he has to say. 20 minutes later, Admiral Vexthon's face appeared on the communication screen. He looked older than he had 3 weeks ago, and there was something different in his eyes. Sarah realized what it was. Respect. Admiral Rodriguez, Vexthon said, I come bearing an official message. From the Zeltharian High Command, we're listening. The Empire formally recognizes Earth's sovereignty and agrees to withdraw all forces from systems within 50 light-years of your world. We also request diplomatic relations. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Diplomatic relations? 3 weeks ago, you tried to commit genocide against our species. 3 weeks ago, we didn't understand what we were dealing with. Vexthon's expression was serious. The High Command has reviewed my report extensively. We wish to propose a treaty. What kind of treaty? Non-aggression pact. The Empire agrees never to attack human interests or human allies. In exchange, you agree not to use your quantum weapons against Imperial territories. Dr. Warren laughed. They're afraid we'll start conquering their worlds. Are you planning to conquer Imperial worlds? Vexthon asked. That depends, Admiral Rodriguez said slowly, on whether the Empire continues its policy of enslaving other species. The alien admiral was quiet for a moment. The High Command is reconsidering many of our traditional policies. Because you're afraid of us? Because we're not stupid, Vexthon replied bluntly. Your demonstration showed us that the galaxy has changed. The age of Imperial expansion is over. Sarah watched the exchange with fascination. 3 weeks ago, this alien had commanded the most powerful fleet in known space. Now he was essentially asking permission to exist. Admiral Vexthon, Rodriguez said, we'll consider your proposal, but we have conditions. Name them. First, the Empire must release all enslaved populations immediately. Second, you must provide reparations to species you've conquered. Third, you must allow independent monitoring of your military activities. That would essentially mean the end of the Empire as we know it. Yes, it would. The question is whether you prefer a transformed empire or no empire at all. Vexthon was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. I'll relay your conditions to the High Command. You do that. And Admiral, tell them they have 1 week to respond. The transmission ended and the command center was quiet for a moment. Do you think they'll agree? Sarah asked. They'll argue, negotiate, and try to find alternatives, Rodriguez said. But eventually, yes, they'll agree. How can you be so sure? Dr. Warren answered. Because the alternative is that we demonstrate our quantum capabilities on their home worlds. And after what they've seen, they know we can do it. Sarah looked at the display showing peaceful Earth orbit, where a few months ago everyone had expected to see invasion fleets and orbital bombardment. What happens now? Do we become the new Galactic Empire? No, Rodriguez said firmly. We become something better. We become the guarantee that empires like the Zeltharians can't exist anymore. A technician approached with another report. Sir, we're getting communications from the Kethvari warrior clans. They want to know if humanity is accepting recruitment for a galactic police force. Tell them we'll consider it, Rodriguez said. But make it clear that any such force would operate under human oversight and human rules of engagement. Dr. Warren powered down her equipment and joined them. You know, when we started Project Deep Thought, we thought we were building a defense system. We never imagined we'd end up reshaping galactic civilization. Are you comfortable with that responsibility? Sarah asked. Someone has to do it. The galaxy was full of predators preying on weaker species. At least we're predators with a conscience. Over the following days, reports continued to flow in from across the galaxy. The Zeltharian Empire was withdrawing from dozens of systems. Former slave worlds were declaring independence. Several alien civilizations were forming a coalition to provide humanitarian aid to liberated populations. A week later, Admiral Vexthon returned with the Empire's response. The High Command had agreed to all human conditions. The Zeltharian Empire would transform from a conquering force into a member state of what was being called the Galactic Cooperative. "There's one more thing," Vexthon said during the final negotiation. "The High Command wants to know if humanity would be willing to share some of your quantum technology." "For defensive purposes only, of course," Dr. Warren smiled. "Admiral, we'd be happy to share our knowledge. But first, your scientists will need to understand basic quantum mechanics. We estimate that will take your civilization about 50 years. 50 years just to understand the basics? Quantum mechanics isn't something you can rush. It took humanity a century to develop the theory, and another century to make it practical. But don't worry, we'll be happy to provide protection while you're learning." As Admiral Vexthon's ship departed for the final time, Sarah stood in the observation deck looking out at Earth. The blue planet looked the same as it always had, but everything else had changed. Humanity had been forced to reveal its true capabilities, and in doing so, had become the unwilling guardians of galactic civilization. It wasn't the future anyone had planned for, but it was the future they had. "Captain," Admiral Rodriguez said, joining her at the viewport, "we're going to need more facilities like this one. Every major human colony is requesting a quantum defense grid." "Are we building an empire, Admiral?" "No, Sarah. We're building something that makes empires impossible. There's a difference." As if to prove his point, a communication came in from the Andromedan Republic. They had successfully liberated their homeworld, and were requesting human advisors to help establish a democratic government. Sarah smiled. It was going to be an interesting century. Outside the viewport, Earth continued its ancient rotation, carrying the species that had just become the galaxy's accidental peacekeepers toward whatever future awaited them among the stars.